We're learning as a schus for Shlem Filan Chaya Basarach. We're on the bottom by the Mishnah on the bottom of Ayin Amid Beis. It's like the Mishnah. Bolshush shenichnasu le'ir b'shas shalom. A bolshush. When I learned this Gemara, I found out that it's this Mishnah. I learned that we had previously described about marauding gangs was really more about was talking about like more IRS agents previously when we talked about the previous case where um, uh, troops went in and they opened up a bunch of wine, and we said that it's because they're looking for money. Over here, we're talking about real army. This is really the people who fight in wars. So you had a group of an army, a troop that came into Ir b'shas shalom. If it's a time of peace, chavis psuchos asuris. The open barrels are asur. These are non-Jewish troops, so we assume they touch them. But the stumos are mutaris. The ones that are closed are mutar. Now, even though we've said that you have to always be chayshish when a guy comes, that maybe, we said that either he'll make a hole and patch it, or he'll take off the cover and replace it. But over here, these goyim, these troops couldn't care less. They're not scared of anything. So if they were going to take wine, they would have just opened it and left it open. So the fact that it's closed in this case is sufficient for us to be confident that they didn't touch it. B'shas milchama, if it's during wartime, when they're in the middle of fighting, then they don't have time to drink. They have to fight for their lives. Is this true that Goyim don't have time to do anything when they're in the middle of milchama? A city that was conquered by an army, kol kahenes shebesoichai psulis. All the wives of the kahanim are puzzled to their husband because they're assumed that the troops were born them, honest them, and a woman, a wife of a kayan, a isha who is ma'unis, is also to a kayan. He says there's a difference that it's true that they will stop what they're doing to be Ba'an Isha, but that's not as strong. That's a stronger taiva than that of being Menasach Yain. I feel like we saw exactly the opposite recently, right? We saw a little bit the opposite. Lagabi Tyrus. What do we see? I don't know. We saw about when you had the Zaina sitting together with. I guess we saw over there also that the Taiva Faznus also was very strong.
Yeah, we said if the Jews are with a non-Jewish Zaina, they'll be
They'll have more. They'll have a Taiva for the Znus, but not for the Yayin Esach. They'll still respect. It's not really a great analogy to this. Doesn't directly.
I like it because it just shows what in other words, the same thing over here. In other words,
over here we're not talking about a Yetzirah for. Over here we're talking about the Goyim. It's not a Yetzirah for them. From their perspective, it's a Yetzir Taiv to be Menasach Liyan. They're doing their Avoda.
Showing the desire is stronger, which is similar to.
Right.
It is a pretty good analogy.
We definitely saw by us that the desire for Bia is very strong. Yeah. Zak the mission. Ha'omnin shel Yisrael shachalhem ovid kechavim chavish shel yayin nesach b'schar. A worker, somebody who does business, he's a yid and he does, let's say he's a auto repair guy. And the Ovid Kechav, he fixed the car of a guy. So now the Ovid Kechav owes him money. And he sent him a barrel of wine of Yayin Esach as payment. So the Gid hasn't yet gotten the Yayin Esach, but it was sent him. Mutter loima tein lanu es damer. You could say, don't give me this Yayin Esach. I want the money instead. Rashi says damer. Doesn't say. I'm sorry. Dali Konalu, who any Chayla and Elamois, Vitania, Yisrael, Shenoisa by Vichavim Mana, Macha, with Kichavim, Heavy Loy Yanesach, Vehevi Loy Mutter. Since he hasn't been kained yet, the yid hasn't yet gotten the yayin, it doesn't belong to him, he could tell the guy, you take it instead. You take it and give me money. I don't want the yayin. And since what he's entitled to is money, it's not like he's sending back his own money and replacing it with, it's not like he got the yayin and then replaced it. We had said before the concept, which doesn't come up in this Gemara, that a yid it can't be roitze b'kiyumai, but he has to have some kind of connection with it. Even though in this case he obviously wants to get paid, but he's owed money by this guy. So whether he pays him with the yayin esach or not, he's supposed to get paid. But the Mishnah continues, but once the yid took it into his rishus, then it's too late. Then he already was moishechet, or he already got it. So then it's too late. He can't return it back and say, I want to return it and get back my money. Amrav Yudamra, because then he's getting paid. The yayin esach was his. He can't sell yayin esach. Amrav Yudamrav, mutal adam loim alai v'gechavim. Save a hafes alai menas hamelech. A person can tell a guy, go and satisfy the obligation that I have to the king. Everyone has to pay taxes. He says, I want you to satisfy my my obligation to the king. Even though he's going to use his yayin nesach to pay the yid's obligation. The yid owes $100 to the king, and the guy goes and pays $100 of yayin nesach, and then the yid has to pay him back. That's okay, because he didn't particularly care. As I was going to explain, he didn't care that he should pay with yayin nesach. He just wanted him to take care of it. Meisvei al yoyma adam loy oil tachti la'oitzer. You can't say go in my place to the oitzer, meaning to satisfy my obligation to the king. So l'chayrit we said save a hafes alayim, go satisfy my obligation is okay. Well, how is that any different when he says go in my place to take care of my tax burden? Amalei Rav, oil tachti la'oitzer ka'amrit. You're talking about where he said, go into my place. What the brisa that says that you can't say oil tachti la'oitzer concludes and says that you could say malteini min oitzer, save me from the oitzer. So this case over here, when he says hafis alai menas hamelech, is similar to malteini. And the difference is, when he says save me, or he says satisfy my obligation, that's just, he's saying, I want you to do it, and I'll pay you back. But he's not appointing him a shliach. He's not saying, I want you to take take something and make it mine, and then pay the king. But rather he's saying, I want you to satisfy it, and then I'll be obligated to you. But when he says, go into my place, then he's making him a shliach. Then if it's his shliach paying with the yayin nesach, that's a problem. So it's not a direct it's not directly connected to the Mishnah, but it is a similar discussion. Where you could say tein loy domea, because that's also not directly. He's not saying he's not having it done with the yayin esach itself. He just says, I want the money. So over there also, if he says pay my obligation, he's not saying you're my shliach. And then when he does it with yayin esach, he's a shliach to pay with yayin esach. He's just saying, I want you to pay the money. That's all I'm asking you to do. I'm not saying anything about that you're my shliach. Therefore, whatever form you do it in, that's your business. It has nothing to do with me. Zok the Mishnah. Someone who sells wine to an oived kechavim. Pasak actually madav davam mutarin, madad actually pasak davam asurin. if he made up the amount that he was going to pay per quantity. Like if he said, I'm going to pay $10 per liter. So if he made that up, and then afterwards the guy measured out how much he took the bottle, the amount of wine, and he measured a half a liter, dam of mutar. The money as received is mutar, because so there's a couple of assumptions here. First of all, the Gemara is going to have a shaila of whether Mashiach is kaino or not by a guy. We know Mashiach is the Mashiach, and Hagbah is its a close relative, either pulling something towards you or picking something up. These are the standard way for a yid to be kaina is when he takes something into his rishus. But there's a question that our Gemara, the Amoraim are going to argue about whether Mashiach is kaina by a guy as well, or is it only kani with the nesinas mammon? So in this case, pasuk ad shalei madad, if he was paisik, they made up the amount of money, and then the guy was measured it. So as soon as he's maided it, as soon as he measures it, he picks it up to measure it. So if you hold Mashiach's kind of by guy, he was kind at that time, and then it's inevitable. It seems that when he measures it, at some point he's going to also touch the wine. Does not immediately, not when it's first measured, but then he's gonna come in contact with it. So by the time he comes in contact with it, since he was paisik, they already made up the price, and the guy measured it, so that's immediately a kinyan. They made up the amount, and he did the mashicha, so it's kaina. According to, we'll see how you'll explain in Kund Amanda Amma that says mashicha is not kaina. So then the damav is mutter because it became yayin nesach after it was already in the rishus of the guy. So the money that he received for the yayin was for kosher wine. Madad actually pasak damav, but if the guy measured it, and when he measures it, he's also inevitably going to touch it, but they haven't yet made up the price, so that that mashicha cannot be kaina. So damav asur. In that case, the yid is going to be asur on the money because it became yayin nesach before the guy took possession. Amar Ameimer, and Ameimer says mashicha by the kirchavim kaina. Like we said, our mission is more easily understandable according to this pshat. The Gemara will later explain, according to the Mandam, who says Mashiach is not kind of how the Mishnah will work. But we're going to talk about this question independent of the Mishnah. So Abema says Mashiach ba'avik kechavim is kind of all you need is avik kechavim to pick something up, and he's kind of. Teda the hani parsoi meshadri pardashni lahadadi v'lehadribu. The parsim will send gifts to one another, and they won't. There's no backsies on it. They don't return it. They can't retract the gift. So it must be because as soon as they got the gift, they were kind of. That's Rashi says pardashi is a dairin, which is a gift. Other Rishonim have problems with it because Mashicha is generally not kind of even by a yid on a gift. It's only kind of on a sale. So they say different pshat, and Pardashni is not a gift. It's part of a sale that we're talking about. But then the other part is So Ravashi Ravashi disagrees. He says it could be, and he taka holds. They take out the words la'ilam emelach because he taka holds this is a shita. Mashicha ba'ivin kechavim is eina kaina. V'haidele hadibu the ramis ruchu the nakitalhu. They don't want to be seen as an Indian giver. Once they've given something, they don't want to retract it because of their ramis rucha, because of their arrogance, their snobbery. Amar Ravashi. So it comes out, Ameimer seems to be saying, Mashicha ba'avik kechavim is kaina, that not just kesef, but even Mashicha. And Ravashi says no. Ravashi says it's not kaina. Amar Ravashi, Mina Aminallah. Where do I see this that Mashicha is not kaina by a guy? Midamalahu Rav lahanu saviyusa. Rav said to these these people who sell wine, when you're measuring out, when you're selling wine and measuring it out to a goyim, first First take the money from them, and then afterwards measure it. And if they don't have money with them, uspinuhu shakilu minai. In that case, if they don't have money so that they could do a kinyan in advance of getting the wine poured for them, lend them money so they could pay you, so they'll be kind of the wine as soon as they get it. So that it should be a halva, a general halva obligation, and then when the wine becomes yayin nesach later, it's not going to be a problem. If you don't do this, ki kahavi yayin nesach birshusaychu kahavi. When the wine becomes yayin nesach, meaning when you pour out the wine to them, the wine becomes yayin nesach, and it's still in your reshus, because shachlisu demei yayin nesach shachlisu. And if it's still yayin nesach, when you pour it out, it's yayin nesach that's yours. When you're taking money from it, you're getting money for your yayin nesach. If you hold, as soon as the guy picks up yayin nesach, it immediately, as soon as a guy picks up anything, he's kainit. As soon as you pour out the wine into the guy's kli, he didn't immediately touch it, so it's kaina when it goes into the kli, and it doesn't become yain nesach till later. So this is Rav Ashi's raya that Mashicha is not kaina by a guy.
It goes into goy's kli, so isn't it mixed together with his yain nesach that's in the kli?
So you're 100% right, and that's what the Gemara is going to say in about right now. So the Gemara says we're not talking about where it's. The Gemara till this point was assuming that the guy is holding a kli, but it's not the guy's kli; it's the yid's kli. So we want him to be kind of with Mashicha while the yain is in the kli of the yid. The yid pours it into his own kli. I guess it's looking at it like a bar, and the guy is using the glass of the guy, or maybe he's going to pour from the measuring vessel of the yid into his own vessel. So Zaktimar, you'd be correct that if it was being poured into the kli of the Yisrael, the guy would be kind of with Mashicha when it goes into the kli, but and it wouldn't become yayin nesach until the guy touches it. We're talking over here, like Rafael said, that it's going into the kli of a ovid kechavim. So Rashi b'mana da ovid kechavim on the last wide line, the yayin sheba kli oisrei. So now we're not talking about that it becomes yayin nesach because of the guy's touching it, but because there's yayin in the kli, and when this yayin mixes with the guy's yayin, it becomes asav avi yayin nesach mekami mashicha. It becomes yayin nesach even before mashicha. So that's the reason why you have to pay money. So before it even touches the yayin in the kli, the guy already owns the yayin, and it doesn't become yayin nesach till later. Frak the Gemara, saif kimana lavir the mana kanya. Frak the Gemara, even if you're saying this, it's still, if you hold Mashicha is kaina, it should be a kinyan hagba as soon as the wine goes into the airspace. As soon as you stop pouring the wine in, it becomes kani because of we say called seifa lenuach kamunach dami. So it's as if it's already on the floor, but it still hasn't touched. So that won't help. That won't make it yayin esach, but it should make it kani when it goes into the airspace of the kli. It should be considered hagba by the guy. Yayin esach lehavi adamata lar yasu demana, but it doesn't become yayin esach until it reaches the bottom. So we would see from there, Shmami no nitza chibur. So zok the Gemara. So if we're saying that it's also right away, the only way to get around it is we'll have to say that as soon as when he starts pouring the yayin, it becomes usher, even though some of it becomes he's kainit as soon as it reaches the avir of the kli, but then the stream will eventually reach the bottom, it will become yayin nesach, and there's going to be that yayin nesach will be connected to where he's pouring it from through the stream. And as we've seen earlier in this Masechta, it's a question whether nitzuk is a chibur, whether the stream is considered a chibur. So this would seem to indicate, if we're saying that it's going to become usher from the bottom prior to the yayin going into the avir of the kli, that would be a raya that nitzuk is a chibur. Dr. Gemara, loy. It's not correct. You can't bring that's not a taina. You'd be correct if the guy was holding the kli, so then it would be kani when it goes into the avir of the kli. It's sitting on the ground, so that's why there's no kinyan hagba when the wine goes into the airspace of the kli. Correct the Gemara v'tiknei keliyoi. Why don't we say, Caleb? Why don't we say that the kli, even though it's munach ha'ara, it should be kaina shamina kelef shalekech b'shus meichel lekana. L'chayra, we have another question whether Caleb of the buyer in the rishus of the meicher. This is in the yid's rishus. Well, from the fact that we're saying that it's not kani when it goes into the avir of the kli, which is also this kinyan of the kli is also a form of hagba. It's also meshicha. So you're saying it's not kani, if that's and that's why you have to advance the money. So then this would be a raya. If you hold meshicha is kaina, then it should be kani when it goes into the avir of the kli because of the din of kelef shalekech. So this would be a raya kelef shalekech which is moicha lekana lekech. So in any way, we're not trying to resolve these questions. What we're trying to say is that it must be that Mashiach is not kaina, because if Mashiach was kaina, we'd have a resolution to this question. It could be that it is kaina, generally. There's a different problem. It's not the wine at the bottom of the kli that's going to make it yayin nesach. It's the wine at the top of the kli. We're thinking about a kli. We're thinking about a barrel, but this could be talking about like a bottle with a narrow neck, and there's a little bit of wine on the top of the neck of the bottle. So when you pour in, it touches that. The kama insachle. So as you pour it in, it becomes yayin nesach. All of it becomes yayin nesach immediately, even before it comes into the avir kli. It's nothing to do with Mashiach's kain. It's before you get to the Mashiach issue. So Akdamaru, come on. Who is this like? The like Reb Shimon Gamliel. This is not like Reb Shimon Gamliel. The Reb Shimon Gamliel, Amar Macha Kuloi Laivdikechav Chutz Min Yayin Nesach Shabai. Rabbi Gamliel says if you have a mixture of yayin nesach together with kosher wine, you can sell to the guy the kosher wine, and you just have to exclude the value of the yayin nesach. Now over here, if we're just the yayin nesach is just that little bit on top of the barrel, on top of the bottle, with just a couple of drops, he'll be very happy to exclude that from the price. No, this is l'chayra. But according to and we're saying that the whole thing becomes yayin nesach. It's all us. So no. Midu time el Rav Amarav hilchos Reb Shimon Gamliel chavis bechavis avaloy yayin beyayin. Rav says that we don't pass on like Reb Shimon Gamliel. We only pass on Reb Shimon Gamliel if you have separate barrels. If you have 10 barrels of kosher wine and 1 barrel of not kosher wine, you could sell it and exclude the value of that wine because it's separate. But if you have mixed yayin mixed together, physically mixed, then you can't separate. So Rav says we don't pass on the Reb Shimon Gamliel when you have a mixture of wine. And over here we're talking about the wine that touches on the tip of the bottle.
So when you have a stream going back to the pitcher, that the yid pours from, so the entire pitcher becomes yayin nesach.
Well, that would come down to this question of Reb Shimon Gamliel or not. We're saying, well, there's 2 questions. First is a question of whether you say nitzuk, right? That's the threshold question. Do you look at the stream as connecting? If you do say, so then you have to look at Rav Shimon Gamliel. Rav Paskins that it would be considered part of the, it would all be considered yayin esach, and you couldn't sell it to a guy because they're mixed together. So einach hanami, according to Rav, and if you say nitzuk is a considered a connection, then it would be asur. It would be asur to sell that wine. Correct Gemara. Meisvei. We're going to ask a kasha, another. So this is all Rav Ashi asking on Ameima. Ameima says Mashicha is kaina, and Rav Ashi said nah. Correct. So he asks a question. Meisvei halakech grutois min ha'ovdei kechavim. Someone who bought pieces of metal from ha'ovdei kechavim. Matzah ben avodas kechavim. He bought it from a guy, and he found little idols mixed in with the pieces of metal. If before the Yid who bought these pieces of metal, he took the metal into his possession, then he could return it. He says, I'm not interested. He could return at least certainly the idols. But if he already paid the money and then he did Mashicha, then he has to take the Avoda Zara that he found and throw it into the sea. So if you say Mashicha is kaina, so the fact if you hold Mashicha is kaina, we're saying it depends on whether he gave the money beforehand or not. But if you hold Mashicha kaina, you don't need to give the money. That's everyone agrees Kasef is kind of by Ovid Kechavim. I should also point out that this question of whether Mashiach is kind of by Ovid Kechavim is whether we're talking about a Yid being Moshech from a guy or a guy being Moshech from a Yid. Like we were talking before about the guy being Moshech the Yayin Nesach, now we're talking about the Yid being Moshech from the guy, but it's irrelevant. Both of them would be included in this machlaikas. But in any case, why does he have to return it? How is he allowed to return it if he was Moshech it before he gave money? The Mashiach should be kind to the Yid, and he owns the Avodah Zara. Amar Abaye mishum demechse kimechach tais. Abaye says because he says kimechse, but it is because he holds because it is a mechach tais. If the Yid didn't know there was a Avodah Zara there, he never intended to buy it. So even when he did the Mashiach, it's not kind of. Amar Rava reisha mechach tais seif alav mechach tais. So he says, so what's the case? We said in the second part that if we're explaining that the reason why he could be machzer it, where he did the Mashicha before the Nesinas Mois. If he did the Mashicha before the Nesinas Mois, then he could be machzer because it's a mekach tais. So does it make a difference if he did the Nesinas Mois before the Mashicha? That we said in the Sefer they has to throw it into the sea. Why can he say it's a mekach tais there? Elam Rava Reisha v'Sefer mekach tais. Both of them are mekach tais. Reisha del Yav Zuzi le mischazi kavod chavim biyad Yisrael. Sefer di Yav Zuzi mischazi kavod chavim biyad Yisrael. The problem is if he already gave the money, then it appears when he wants to now go be chayzer on it, it looks like he's giving back Avodah Zara and he's getting back money. It looks like it belongs to him and he's selling it to the guy for money. But where the Mashicha was before the Nesinas Mois, now I'm not exactly clear if the guy gave the money subsequent to the Mashicha to the Yid. So in the end, it looks the same whether the Mashicha was first or the Nesinas Mois was first. So it seems like in the first case the Yid never got any money. That's the understanding. So therefore it doesn't.
Yid is the one who's. You mean when he gives it back?
When the Yid had never gotten money in the first place. So now when he gives it back, he just doesn't owe the money. So it doesn't look like he's selling a Avoda Zara. Continue. Yeah, Amalei Markashisha Breder of Chizla Ravashi. Toshma, he asked the Kashan Ravashi. Ravashi is the one who says Mashiach is not kind of. Hamoicha Yena Levid Kechavim, Pasuk Av Shalei Madav, when he sells Yayin to an Levid Kechavim, if he makes up the amount before the guy measures it, Dam of Mutarn, then the Dam of is Mut. V'yam Mashiach Ba'Levid Kechavim Eina Kaina, if you say being moided it is not a kinyan, amai dam of mutar. We said if it's pasuk, actually madad dam mutar. But all you did with pasuk is you made up the price, and madad is we said in our Mishnah that if he used pasuk, if he made up the price before he measured it, then it's mutar. Now, if you hold mashicha no avikachavim is a kaina amai dam of mutar, why is the dam of mutar? If what does it make a difference? It still was never kani by the guy. It still belongs to the yid. No money was changed hand. He just made up a price, and then he was mudded. So why is it mutter? It was still the yid's yayin at the time that the guy touched it. So we're talking about where the guy had already given him. He said, I have $100. I want it to be on account. Now I'm going to draw from it. So now, when he was paisik damav, when they made up an amount and then he measured it, so he knew how much it was, so he was immediately kind of with a kinyan kesef. So asurin. If he measured it before they made up the price per gallon or per liter, then it's also. Why is it dam of asurim? He already gave him money. He said, if you say Mashiach is kind, why are we saying in the Reisha, where he was Pasak Damav before he was Madav, that we say it's Mutter, because he's kinda with the Mashiach? The Sefer Davasur, Elamayis Chlameima, Pasak Sam Chadaite, Le Pasak Le Sam Chadaite. The Idami, Avagav the Kodm Ledina, Pasak Sam Chadaite, Le Pasak Le Sam Chadaite. He says he's Rav Ashi's telling him, even if he gave money, but if there was no agreement about the amount, if they don't have the measurement and they don't have the agreement of how much he's going to pay, even though the yid already has the money in his hand, it's not going to be a sale until they know how much it is. So it depends if whether that happened before or after the guy touched it. If they came to the full agreement on the terms, just like by the Mashiach, it's only kani when you have a pisuk of the damav of how much he's going to be paying. So the same thing will apply with the kinyan kesef as well, even though the money is already in the hand of the yid. Okay, we'll stop over here, and Bez Hashem, I'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you.